This video is going to be about the idea that assessment informs instruction, which is to say that you often choose what you teach and how you teach based on assessing. So, and this is not to say assessment equals testing. Assessing is figuring out what kids know, and how you can proceed from there is the instructional decision-making process. So this is going to relate to response to intervention, or RTI, and MTSS, the multi-tiered systems of support, in a number of ways. So this will be extending on things that we've learned about those. So let's just stick with this idea of learning the alphabet letters, like a lot of our examples have so far. So we've got all the letters A through Z. We've got the capital and the lowercase. That's 52 letters total. We might reduce that down to 38 because these are not unique shapes to learn. These are not unique shapes to learn. These are not unique shapes to learn. But this is capital G, lowercase g. Let's see. Capital N, lowercase n, capital Q, lowercase q. Those are unique shapes. Even capital L, lowercase l. Similar, but very different to look at. So we need kids to know about 38 of these different shapes, and we want to make sure that they can name all of these alphabet letters fairly quickly. So let's just imagine that I have one kid who has nailed 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They've gotten all the way through. They know almost all of these alphabet letters. The only two that they don't know with certainty, they still have some confusion on G and Q. So I've got a kid who knows almost all of the alphabet letters, and they just need to know G and Q. So the other kid that I'm working with only knows this first row of letters, A, B, C, D, E, and F. And that might be linked to the alphabet song, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. They might know all the way over to G, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. 7 letters, and they might only know some of the lowercase letters of those, like they know the C, they know the E, they know the F, and they don't know the others, A, G, B, D, E. So there's a kid who only knows a few of the alphabet letters, doesn't know very much over here. So shouldn't those two different kids receive a different instructional program? One kid already has mastery on almost every single letter of the alphabet and is going to need a few lessons on differentiating the uppercase and lowercase q, the uppercase and lowercase g. And then that kid would be done. You can't know any more letters of the alphabet as long as their speed is pretty good and they don't take 3-5 seconds to name each of the letters of the alphabet. You have this confidence that they're going to be able to catch on with how alphabet letters are used in making words. So what about kids in the middle? What if we're going to have kids who have maybe, out of the 38 shapes they needed to know, that some kids might have 17, 18, 19, about half of them. And are they the same letters for each one of those kids? Like one kid might know this bottom half of the letters and another kid might know this top half of the letters, or they might be kind of scattered all over the place. Just like we looked at in our other data videos, kids are going to be kind of all over the place. Each kid is at their own place and each kid is growing at their own pace. So what we want to do is we want to figure out where each one of our kids is at with alphabet letter learning. And this is where response to intervention comes in, which is to say that if you have an alphabet teaching curriculum and you start teaching each one of these kids, you want to know whether they're responding to the lessons that you're giving them. So you kind of keep going back to some of your assessment instruments, your random letter sheets, some of the other assessment tools that you have for assessing letter naming. And you check them again to see if the instruction you've been giving them has resulted in a bump. Like if you're 2 weeks later and kids who knew only 7 letters now know 12 letters, then are you comfortable with that growth? Is that enough growth? You're going to have to check what the benchmarks are for kindergarten and first grade to see how much growth you're going to expect over a few weeks worth of time. But if I do 2 to 3 weeks of instruction and get over to here, 2 to 3 weeks more instruction, get over to here. I can be pretty confident that by the end of kindergarten, I'm going to be able to get that kid to know all of the letters of the alphabet. But if I teach this same kid who knows A through G for 3 weeks, and that kid only makes it to H, then I can kind of do the math. It's like if this kid is only getting a new letter every 3 weeks, my instruction really isn't working, and I'm not gonna want to put myself in a position where I'm using 3 weeks to get every single one of these other letters of the alphabet. By the time I'm done with kindergarten, which only has about 33 weeks in the school year, I'm only going to be able to get about 11 letters of growth. So that would add up to about 17 total. That's not going very far. For that kid, I would want to find a different approach to teaching the letters of the alphabet, an intervention approach, because this is my normal curriculum for most kids and it's not working. So I'm going to choose a tier 2 intervention, which is to say I'm going to go to other techniques that are known for teaching the alphabet. And I'm also going to go into smaller groups. So I'm not going to be teaching this kid the whole group lessons that I might be teaching for alphabet, or the bigger groups that I'm teaching in the normal core curriculum. This kid is going to get a little bit closer attention, and it's going to be a little bit more intense. So we might spend a little bit more time on this each day than we would have otherwise. Then if that doesn't work, if that still looks like it's slow, then I'm going to go to tier 3 intervention, which is a point where I kind of call teams together and start really talking about, the normal curriculum isn't working, the second level intervention, tier 2 intervention isn't working. We really need something different to help this kid make the more rapid growth, the acceleration that we need to see in learning these letter names. So that tier 3 intervention needs to be a different method or a different technique, and it also needs to then become much more focused, which is to say this kid might be getting individualized instruction that's super intentional on accelerating how many letters they can learn in the next few weeks. And in addition to individual attention, maybe a little bit more time per week on this type of thing. So instead of getting 2 lessons a week like they might have in the tier 1 curriculum, 3 lessons a week in the tier 2 curriculum, this kid might get letter naming 5 days a week. So assessment informs instruction. What I teach and how I teach it is going to be somewhat determined by what I learn about the kids' learning and whether or not they're actually responding to what's been chosen as the normal basic curriculum for teaching something, like letter naming, like phonics, like sight words, like comprehension strategies, like fluency strategies, all of these things that you might see in a curriculum that are sort of normal. You would expect those to change based on what you learn through assessment. Now, because each kid is going to have a different score on letter naming, it does beg the question of should each of these kids even be getting the same curriculum? It's like if a kid already knows 17 of these letters and the curriculum has you start with 0 letters and work your way up to 17. Shouldn't the kid who already knows 17 letters be able to start from where they're at and continue until they finish learning all of the letters? Yeah, that makes sense. That's one approach to response to intervention, is to take each kid and treat them as an individual, start them from where they're at, and teach them until they've reached the mastery that you hope for. And with something like letter naming, it's finite. You can't know more than the 52 letters of the alphabet. As soon as you've learned them all and can name them pretty quickly, it's just done. It's not like comprehension, where it's sort of infinite, or vocabulary meanings, where it's also potentially infinite, where you can learn more and more meanings, get more and more depth, have more and more ways of interpreting things. Those are things that can expand infinitely, but with something simple and straightforward like letter naming, there's a constraint. Yeah, there's a ceiling that you can get to. But I don't want to be holding back. If my kids already know all the way up to T, I don't want to spend half the year teaching them the letters A through T when they already know them. I want to start here at U and go to the end. Or if it's more random, if they know this letter but they don't know this letter, they know this letter but they don't know that letter, I want to learn through assessment exactly which letters they need to have in lessons. And that way, if I have a group of kids that doesn't know the letter M yet, then they're going to get that letter M lesson. But the kids who already know the letter M, I'm not going to make them sit through that lesson or do those activities. So most of my kids are going to get all kinds of practice activities and work with letter naming and so on. But as far as teaching them direct instruction, I'm going to try to make sure that only the letters that they don't know actually get a lesson. That's one way of handling response to intervention as well, is to really give every kid that idea that you start them from where they're at and work them towards the mastery that you're hoping for. So what we think about how response to intervention or multi-tiered systems of support work kind of depends on what we're working on. With something like letter naming, I just can't imagine a system where I would make all the kids go through an instructional system that takes them through every single letter of the alphabet, because my assessment should tell me that many of my kids already have more than half of these letters. Some of my kids have almost all of the letters, and some of my kids only know a few letters. Those kids are going to be, receiving different instruction and different lessons. Again, if kids are not responding to the types of lessons that I'm giving, Tier 2 instruction means that I'm going to look for a different kind of program, a different approach, and I'm also going to increase the amount of time that that kid might get, going from maybe 2 days a week in alphabet lessons to 3 days a week or 5 days a week. And also, if I see a lot of difficulty with responding to the instruction, I'm going to bring the size of the groups down so that by the time a kid's in Tier 3 intervention, I'm really looking to see if I can get some one-on-one time with that kid. All right.